everybody, we are back with another episode of T Spence Outdoors. Today we are going to be doing a review on the Garmin Panoptix. I want to just lead this whole video with that. This is the first ever kind of fish finder, ice fishing bundle, anything that I've ever owned. I've seen ones like it, my friends have them. I decided I wanted to buy one. Panoptix was available at that time and I decided to buy it. And I gotta tell you all, I am so happy I bought it. And I'm gonna tell everybody why, the things I like and the things that I don't like. Before I get into the pros and cons though, I wanna show everybody the unit that I'm working with and how it works, and just give everybody a display of the actual Panoptix. All right everybody, so here's the Panoptix right here. I've shut all the lights off just so that there's no reflection on the screen so you can really see what this thing does. So immediately what you see here is that you've just got your regular ice transducer. Sorry, my wires are all kind of tangled up at the moment, but this is just your regular transducer. And I'll go into what that shows here in a little bit. And here's your Panoptix transducer. I know it's hard to see just because the light's out, but that screws into your base for the Panoptix, and this is what shows the view that you're looking at on the screen. So let's go ahead and turn this thing on. Takes a minute to turn on here. So this is just, I don't even know, it's just a warning. I just hit accept. I really haven't read it, to be honest. But this is how I have mine set up here. I use the Panoptix the most, so I set that up here first. So let's start off and just click on that. All right, so this is the Panoptix view. Now, obviously you're not gonna be able to see where the footage for the water is because there's no water. So this is where that would show up right here. This would be the top of your hole right here where you've drilled, and all the bottom below it. So I'm gonna show some videos here in this video just showing where the bottom is and how it actually shows up on the screen, but I just want to show everybody how this looks. So I believe these are feet. So as you can see, the deepest that we can go right now is 50 feet. Now if we zoom in, now we're at 60, okay? So you can go deeper if you want. And the other thing is that it goes footage-wise this way as well, so it shows how far width-wise you have on the sonar. So like right now, if this was the hole right here, if a fish is right here, it shows that's 5 feet away. That's the idea that I get from it anyways. So that's pretty cool on its own. You can see at what foot height everything's at. All right, now we're gonna go back here. This is a live view. I just put this up here. I actually don't even know how this works, so we're not gonna go into that. So that Panoptix is this right here. So this is what you would use for that. Let's go into the sonar here. This right here is what you'd use this traditional ice transducer for. So you click here. So this, I know it's all garbled up right now, but you've got your footage here, and then what it'll do is it'll show you your depth and everything. So let's say if your bottom's right here, it'll show bottom, and if there's a mark, it'll actually show the fish or a line right here. Now depending on the color of the line and the thickness of the line is whether or not how it kind of tells you how close that fish is. So this is your traditional transducer. This is what they typically would look like. Now granted, like I said before, this is all garbled up right now just because it's not in the water. I don't have any footage of me using this just because I don't use it a whole lot. But this is really helpful if you're just looking to move around, locate fish, and depths, so you don't have to keep moving that Panoptix. All right, so amongst this right here, the sonar, you can split the frequency. I don't use this at all, but you can have that option. You actually have the traditional old school flasher as well. Again, I don't use this. I don't have any reason to, but it's here if people like that preference. So it's there if you want to use it. Like again, I don't use it, so. Data graphs, that's all garbled up. I don't use this at all either, but I'm sure I will in the future. As you can see that this thing's really easy to use. It really doesn't get much more simple than this. You just click on what you want to use, put the transducer in the water, and you're good to go. So here you have your combos if you wanted to use them. So we'll just go to combo 1. Actually, let's check out combo 4. So right here, because we're not in water, it's not going to show it. But the boat's us. This would show our depth and where we're at. And this would actually give us a chart of where we are in the area. So to give you a better idea, I'll go back and actually give you the water temp and all that kind of stuff. That's really cool as well. So let's go back here. So I don't know if you all can see that, but there's actually numbers there showing where the depths are and giving you a good idea exactly where those things are. Let's go back. So let's talk about charts. This thing is so cool as far as being able to do this right here. So you have on this one alone, I haven't dove into this much, but the ones I do use, I use them actually quite often. So let's start off with the fishing chart. Right here, this thing's neat. Where are we now? All right, so here we are at a local pond. There's really nothing in this pond besides perch and bass or whatever. But when you zoom in, you can actually get different shelves and numbers of depths here. So why is this important, or why is this helpful? So if I'm at the boat launch and I want to find, let's say if I'm fishing for brook trout and I want to find a 3-foot level, or I want to find a 5-foot level, or let's say I want to see where the drop off is. So let's go right here, just for an example. So I can zoom way in, and it's going to tell me exactly, or give me a really good idea on what depths are where. So there's no brook trout in this pond. Wish there was, but there's not. It shows you drop-offs. So as you can see, that's 4 feet, 7 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet. So, and then it goes out to 11. If I were gonna fish this for brook trout, I could say, okay, here's a little shelf right here as it's dropping in this area. Why don't I put this, I don't know, let's say if I wanted to put it between 7 and 4 feet, I could land it right there, knowing that there is a little shelf here. So it kind of gives you an idea. Obviously, you would drill holes and use your transducer to really pinpoint where those drop-offs are. But this is a good way to kind of help you out when you first get there and say, okay, where do I want to go and where to start? And this will give you a good place to start. So I do use this quite a bit. It's been super helpful. And as you can see, it actually shows different lines of drop-offs and what have you. So I really like this. All right, going back. Navigation chart. We're back to our little bass pond here, a little perch pond. So as you can tell, same kind of idea. It's just got all the depths here. Same kind of idea. Just really helpful as well, just to get an idea of where you want to be. This right here is perspective. This is almost like an eye view. So like you can actually see like where in front of you are, what have you. And let's say if there's a 20-foot spot, but this is like a 45 spot, you can actually see like where in comparison you're gonna be. This active captain, I really don't have any idea what that is. Let's click on it. Getting started. Oh yeah, it's just something that I probably don't even really want to use. Maybe in the future, not right now. And then just a frequently used folder. So that's Panoptix. As you can see, really user friendly and just really pretty simple. Okay, so that's the Panoptix unit in a whole and how it works and the buttons and everything. As you can tell, it's very user friendly. I'm going to start with the things that I don't like, okay? Just to start off. The reason why I'm starting off with the cons is because the things that I don't like, they're really not big issues at all. In fact, they're pretty minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but I want to start with those and then go into the pros and how these cons are not, I wouldn't say they're actually cons, they're just things that are not as desirable, I guess. Anyways, enough of me talking about that. Let's just go into the cons. So the biggest con that I see with this Panoptix is the Panoptix stand itself. Now it's not really an issue when you're in one spot. It's not an issue at all. actually. It's actually great because you can set that and it doesn't go anywhere. But when you're drilling multiple holes and you're moving from hole to hole to hole to hole, trying to locate fish, now it starts kind of running into an issue, because when you pull that stand out, you don't want to have to keep taking that Panoptix on and off. If you do that a couple times, you're just going to realize that on a real cold day, it's a pain in the butt unscrewing that nut on and off all the time with that wet water on it. It's going to freeze, it's going to make your hands cold. Now if you're in one spot, it's great because you don't have to move and you can leave it right there. The moving around with it can be a little bit difficult. Now, one thing that I've done, or that I'm going to do more so, is that when I pull that Panoptix transducer out of the water, I'm gonna leave it attached to the stand, and I'm actually gonna lay a jacket down or something, lay the transducer on a jacket and wrap it over. I don't want to damage that transducer. I don't want to have to screw it off. I don't want it to freeze. So I'm going to do that. So really it's not an issue. I'm going to put it in my jet sled, and if I move holes, I'm just going to do that, drill another hole, drop it back in the hole. I will say, dropping it from hole to hole, that's not a huge issue because it's on a stand. I don't have the stand right now, sorry everybody, it's out of my truck. But you can actually take that stand, pick it up, drop it in the water. It's pretty quick in that aspect, but the actual moving it around is kind of a pain. But that's okay, because aside from the Panoptix transducer, this ice bundle actually came with just a regular ice transducer as well. So if you're just looking to locate fish, locate depths, you can actually just punch a hole and drop that transducer in there just to see if you're gonna mark a fish like a line or what have you. And then you can put your transducer down, you can put your Panoptix transducer down and really try to locate what's down there. But if you're just looking for a quick drop, trying to locate that fish or trying to locate a depth. So I'll give you all an example. We were looking for Lakers the other day, anywhere between 40 to 50 feet on the ledges. That seemed to be where they wanted to be. So what I did, I went across the pond that we were on. I started drilling holes. I wanted to find that shelf just in case they were trying to push bait up onto the shelf from deep water. I would drill, I had my Panoptix, so I would just keep dropping the Panoptix in, but I was looking for that shelf, and you can actually see right where the water depths are as you go. And actually I found the shelf right where I wanted to be. Well, you don't have to use a Panoptix for that. You can just use a regular ice transducer. There's nobody ever saying that you have to use a Panoptix because you have it. I will say that it is really handy once you set it up, but if you're just looking for depths, or if you're just looking to locate fish, that regular transducer is awesome. It's quick, easy, and then moving forward. Okay, so that debunks the Panoptix issue. Really, it's not an issue, as you can tell, because you still have that regular transducer, yada, 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 everything I explained before. So I said that there was a couple cons that I didn't like about the Garmin. I'll have to be honest with all of you. Maybe I'm just a positive person, and the stuff that I get, I just really like. I make it work, and I just really enjoy using it. That's really the only con that I had. Going into the actual Panoptix itself, the Panoptix itself is amazing. I've never seen anything like this before. Before I start talking more about this Panoptix, I just want to let you all know that I bought this Panoptix primarily to jig Lakers. Those of you who don't know what Lakers are, they're lake trout. They're just a lot of fun jigging, and that's what I really got this thing for. But aside from that, just in the times that I've used it, I've learned so much about different kinds of fish that I never really would have thought that I would have learned. And here's why. That Panoptix gives you basically a live view of exactly what's going on down there. You can see what fish are doing, how fast they're coming in, how slow they're coming in, if they're coming up and looking at your jig, if your jig's in front of them and they're not really coming into it, if they're just underneath the ice, coming down, whatever it is, you can see it, and it's incredible. Aside from just trying to locate fish, one thing that I really like to do is I like to learn what the fish are doing and what they like to do. I'll give everybody an example. I was jigging the other day, we were looking for Lakers. I was at about 40-ish feet, and I see two red blobs at the top, just underneath the ice, come in really fast, and then they dropped to about 20 feet. This pond that we were fishing, it's got Lakers, it's got salmon, and it's got brook trout. Salmon are typically the ones that move like that. They were fast, and they were right underneath the ice, right? So I moved my jig up to 20 feet where I last saw them. And they came up and they looked at my jig. I started trying to play the cat and mouse thing, reeling it up. They didn't really want anything to do with it. I was also using chartreuse, but they did come up and actually look at the jig. They just didn't want to eat it. So moving forward, these fish were hovering at 20 feet consistently. And they were moving fast. They were in and out. They weren't moving like Lakers. And so I have to believe, I didn't see it, but I have to believe that these were salmon, and these salmon were hanging out at the 20-foot column. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they were Lakers, just the way they were moving, I gotta think that they were salmon. Anyways, I'm watching them, they're right in that 20-foot mark, and about halfway down. So I change jigs, and I change to a Frostbite Mini Slayer with a chartreuse head. It was white with a chartreuse head, and I dropped it down. And they start coming up to it. I tried playing the cat and mouse, and they stopped. They kind of went back down. So I dropped it back down. I said, this time, all I'm gonna do is just barely move it and see if that's what they want. Sure enough, barely move it. They come up to the jig. I saw them right on it, and they hit it. Unfortunately, stupid me, I don't know if it's the way I set the hook or what happened. Rod bent over is what it is. These things happen, but you can see that I hooked a fish. And without that Panoptix, I wouldn't have been able to tell what that fish was doing or what they wanted. So just by watching that fish in that 20-foot column and what he was doing when I was working my jig, it got me to narrow down what they wanted. Super cool. Just wouldn't have been able to do that without that. So with that being said, this Panoptix, you can see what the fish are doing. If you're trying to figure out what kind of jig to use, if you see a mark, they call it a fish mark, and the jig that you're using is not working, you can see that. You can see what it's doing and that it doesn't want it. So the Panoptix itself, super game changer. I couldn't imagine that I could watch a fish like that. And again, being able to figure the fish out, that's really cool. So if you're setting traps, you can actually see in that lake or pond what those fish like to do, and you can set your bait accordingly. This pond that we were fishing, full of smelts, that Mini Slayer actually did a pretty good job matching that smell. So I have to believe that's why it hit that instead of the chartreuse, because it looked more real. The other thing that I like, and maybe this is just universal in its own, is that the case that the Garmin comes in, it's easy to carry, it's easy to zip up, and you can literally just move from hole to hole to hole and just check depths. Really, really nice. It's solid case. Really, I haven't had any problems really with water in it. It's gotten wet a few times on the inside, not from soaking up from the outside, but from whatever going on, water's gotten in there. When I get home, I just unzip it, leave it open, and all dries out. So it works out pretty good in that aspect. The other thing that I really like with this Garmin unit is that it has the chart maps on it. So the chart maps, as we go along, you can actually check to see where you are on the pond or the lake, and you can see what depth you are at. You can actually see the different elevations. This is really helpful when you're trying to locate fish at certain depths, and it kind of saves you a lot of time from having to drill all the time to keep trying to find those depths. Granted, you are still gonna have to drill holes to look for those depths, but in the meantime, you can just use this to kind of speed up the process. This thing has been super great. My honest opinion about this Garmin is that you need to get one. Honestly, I'm not sponsored by Garmin. This thing's incredible. Just the way that you can learn what fish are doing, it's just amazing. I think I've talked enough about exactly what you can do with it. If you're thinking about it, get it, because you're not going to regret it. Just the things that you can see on it, it's unreal. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that this was really helpful. I know a lot of people fish for panfish with these things, but being from Maine, I was hoping that this was really helpful as far as people trying to fish for Lakers, salmon, brook trout, even panfish too. We have great panfish in Maine as well, but I really do love fishing for Lakers, salmon, brook trout, and the other trout species. If you honestly are thinking about getting one, you really should. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.